Alhamdulillah wa kafa wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن جاءكم فاسق بنبأ فتبينوا أن تصيبوا قوما بجهالة فتصبحوا على ما فعلتم نادمين. واعلموا أن فيكم رسول الله لو يطيعكم في كثير من الأمر لعنتم ولكن الله حبب إليكم الإيمان وزينه في قلوبكم وكره إليكم الكفر والفسوق والعصيان أولئك هم الراشدون فضلا من الله ونعمة والله عليم حكيم. وإن طائفتان من المؤمنين اقتتلوا فأصلحوا بينهما فإن بغت إحداهما على الأخرى فقاتلوا التي تبغي حتى تفيء إلى أمر الله فإن فاءت فأصلحوا بينهما بالعدل وأقسطوا إن الله يحب المقسطين. إنما المؤمنون إخوة فأصلحوا بين أخويكم واتقوا الله لعلكم ترحمون. صدق الله العظيم. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, all praises for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us the tawfiq to be here. Alhamdulillah, we're doing the next set of verses for Surah Hujurat from ayah 6 through 10. In the previous verses, this surah has a lot of etiquettes in it, manners in it. It has how to be socially. That if we were to follow this, that will be a proper, normal Islamic society that will be so peaceful. The things that were mentioned prior were so were mentioned in the last dars. Don't go ahead of Allah and the Rasul. And that had many interpretations. What does it mean, don't go ahead of Allah? Just that principle, the one that Surah Hujurat starts off with, it actually resolves much of our quarrels and societal problems. If every relationship and every organization and every setup, if they were to just say that, okay, we don't go ahead of Allah and the Rasul, if people can agree on that, then all problems resolved. So people go ahead of Allah. Don't raise your voice above the voice of. So that if you take that not physically, if you take that figuratively, don't raise your voice above the voice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that'll also create so much peace in society. Today's verses, they begin, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. Okay, I'll translate it first. Ayah 6. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe, in ja'akum fasiqun binaba'in, if there comes to you a fasiq with some news. Normally fasiq in Arabic means sinner, but here some ulama have translated this word fasiq as just any person. It's just saying just anyone come to you. Like obviously if somebody we think is a person who does a lot of investigation, maybe we'll believe what he says, our teachers or someone who has status. But it's just saying anyone come. Fasiq means just anyone. Not someone who you confirm as he has 100% solid evidence and a man of complete investigation, he's sharing that with you. This fasiq here means just anyone. So if just anyone comes to you binaba with a news, فَتَبَيَّنُوا, then you should thoroughly investigate into it, أَن تُصِيبُوا قَوْمًا بِجَهَالَةٍ, lest you start behaving differently with some people because of that news. فَتُصْبِحُوا عَلَى مَا فَعَلْتُمْ نَادِمِينَ, then you will become, as a result of that, very sad about what you have done. And so you'll mistreat people because of this news that you got, and now you'll be sad about how you behaved, and it all started off because you believed in the news. So this ayah is a very important ayah. It tells us about investigating news. In the hadith, there's a hadith that mentions كَفَى بِالْمَرْءِ كَاذِبًا أَنْ يُحَدِّثَ بِكُلِّ مَا سَمِعَ. That's enough to say somebody's a liar, that he just tells everything he hears. Like if you're a person, you broadcast everything you've heard. Like you heard this, that you hear all kinds of things all over the place, and you just broadcast every single, I heard that there, I heard that there. Every news, that is enough proof that you're a liar. Okay? Yeah, any types of forwards, messages. So we have to make sure you're not that. You don't broadcast everything. You kind of think about it. You think about it, you discern between the information that you have before you make any judgments. For example, people give us all kinds of newses, so we should discern. There's a story of a sheikh in Darul Uloom in Karachi, huge school there, Darul Uloom, Karachi. It's like thousands of students. Their principal was known. He had a nice principal. But obviously, he was a person who was running a university with thousands of students. Imagine how many people wanted to be close to him and tell him stuff. But he had a very strong policy with making sure he never took news that never. So what he would do to you is if you come up to him with news, he'll just ask you, who said? He'll ask you, who said? Then you're going to end up saying, oh, John said, right? Someone said, Khalid said. Then he said, like, who did he get it from? Then you're done. You're stuck at that point. You're very embarrassed because obviously the sheikh and he caught you out on it. Who told you this? So people are very wary. They didn't want to go up to the sheikh and tell him stuff anymore. They all stopped. You don't want to tell this sheikh anything because as soon as you tell him anything, what is he going to end up doing? He just asks you who said. Now you have to quickly remember who said. Then when you tell him the first source, he wanted to backtrack things. He wanted the evidence of everything that you're saying, or else because he's running a huge institute. If he just hears, there's a lot of different parties in there, and they might want to all whisper something to that person, that this, that, that, and then he has to discern between all that. So he wants solid before he hears anything about anyone. Again, that was just his policy. You can come up with your own policy, but be very, very, very. You don't have to do anything. You can either just hear something and not do anything, and you're good. You don't have to investigate into everything that you hear. Someone says something, you just. Also remember, if it's a news that doesn't affect people or you or the society in any way, then it doesn't matter who gives us that news. For example, your friend told you, oh, that Khalid is painting his garage blue. Okay, that's fine with me. Okay, that's good for him. That doesn't affect you or doesn't affect the society, so we're not going to worry about that news. So news are also different types of news. I'm coming to that. Okay, we're going to kind of analyze what kind of news is and how much witness we need on that. There are some times that the news, you don't take the news. Like for example, once there's a divorce, like in a divorce case, after the divorce, whatever the husband says about the wife or the wife says about the husband and accusations are not to be heard from any party, because of course they're going to be biased. Meaning if they have parted ways, the husband and wife, right, they've divorced. That's it. It's not their business to now say that, oh, I like to let you know how that guy was, or the wife wants to, or the husband wants to let you know how that lady was. He can't do that. So you have to be very mindful of taking that news from him, because they're going to be biased on it. So like that, each person, each news, you're going to have to find out the Shari'i reason, how much thorough investigation, who is the legitimate way to find out. I mean, if you want to find out about the lady who's been divorced, maybe through someone else. It may not be from that spousal divorce, because he'll have his own bias. Maybe he's angry about the divorce. Like that. There was one sheikh in the past, Salaf. Somebody would come up to him and go, oh, people say bad stuff about you. I heard someone say this about you. And the Shaykh would tell him that, oh, well, he said it behind my back, you just said it in front of me. So like, you've hurt me more. I didn't know people said that about me, but now you just told me. So now you hurt me. So you've hurt me because you told me. At least that I didn't know what was happening behind my back. So like that. We don't have to worry about everybody's news. That's between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our job is when news comes to us, understand? If you're going to do something with that news, if you have to investigate what kind of news is that. You have to investigate thoroughly before you pass on. If you pass on everything that you hearsay everything, that's enough to be a kadhib in Islam, a liar. Then moving on. So basically the summary is that the Aslaf, the pious predecessors, they would stop people from telling them news. We have become a society now, it's just like, let me know. We like to, we take pleasure out of it. Oh, what happened? They would stop people. I mean, there's only, I don't need to know this information. They'd get away from certain information. And that's the way it has to be. A Muslim society has to be like that. That is the moral. That is the etiquette. Not just investigating into things that doesn't affect you. You're not the judge of it. Doesn't affect you, but it's just hot topic that you just like to know a bit more about. So we should refrain from that. There's a context to this verse. There was a person by the name of Walid radiallahu ta'ala anhu. He was told to go get zakat. Walid radiallahu ta'ala anhu was asked to go pick up zakat from somewhere, collect zakat from a town. Those people happened to be his old buddies that they had animosity between each other. So while he was going, someone gave him the rumor that, oh, you're going to those old buddies of yours before Islam. They don't really like you. And by the time you get to that town for asking for zakat, they'll just kill you. So when he heard that, then he stopped. Although the Prophet had ordered him to go get the zakat. So then he stopped. So then these verses were revealed. That's the context of these verses. So he was told that, actually, but that wasn't their plan. They were actually good Muslims by now. They weren't about to kill him. They were going to give him the money. But he based his information off that one rumor. So he was told that, why did you just hear a rumor, and then investigate into that rumor? You, on the one hand, the Prophet had ordered you to go do something. On the one hand, you just had anybody give you a rumor, and then you just stopped. You should have investigated into that rumor, found out some way. But you have, on the other hand, the command of Rasulullah to do this task. So like that, that is a sha'nun nuzul. That is the context of this. So the hukum is, the order is, that we need to either investigate into it or forget about it. If it's something doesn't affect you, you can just hear it, and whatever doesn't affect you, it doesn't affect society. If it's something important news, you have to investigate. And if you don't have the time to investigate something, you just forget about it. Also on our newses, one way to tell is who sent it out. I mean, I get a lot of messages. I don't send everything out. I send some stuff out, right? I bother you all a lot, right? With all the messages sometimes? No. But I send a very particular message. That message is well chant ke. It's a very particular message that I'm ever going to send you. I don't have time to just send everything forward. I'll send you to something and it's like authentic. It's, which website, which alim wrote it, and then which ahadith are there. I've looked into all that. Then I've sent it forward. I remember there was a message I think I sent forward, the sunnahs of Eid. And then someone else took that message and sent it forward somewhere else. And then they were like, oh, which hadith is this in? Right? It was just the sunnahs written there. So the reference to that is just enough that it's from this website. And that website belongs to this sheikh. And this Maulana's website is well famous, known. He himself is a world famous alim, known, and has thousands of students. So that enough is a reference. So you don't need any further references than that. So in Islamic law, you don't have to provide evidence like, for everything. You don't need to have a hadith for it, an ayah to it to back it up. Just enough would be the book that you're taking it from, or that you source it back to. Just that website or that alim who you taking it from, that's a website, that's a resource. You learned at this school, this madrasa, is the name of the teacher that you studied from. That is your reference. People don't use that as a reference to society, but it should be utilized. It's a much superior reference, as opposed to cherry picking. And then from our vast encyclopedic, right? We have revelation, right? So much hadith and thousand references, Sahaba statements. And then somebody cherry picked that, versus if you referenced it back to a living scholar, the other one would have some weight. It's better for the public that way to reference it to people and institutions that are well known. Also, the word naba means important news. That when someone fasik comes to you, any guy comes to you, bin naba. Naba means important news. That's why prophets are called Nabi. Understand? But they come with an important news. They're not just coming with any news, they're coming with an important news. So here in the verse it says, when any guy comes to you and he's coming to you with a important news, فَتَبَيَّنُوا, then you go investigate. Someone just tells you that he colored his garage blue, that doesn't matter. Who cares if he colored it blue, right? Doesn't affect no one. Then there's in Sharia, there's different witnesses that you need depending on each situation. It's called the nisab, the threshold of witness. How much witness do you need, and for what kind of a case? It's all different in Sharia. Sometimes one man's witness could be accepted. Sometimes one lady could be accepted. Sometimes you need two. The general standard is two men, or either two women and one man. That's like a standard, like a default one. But there are some that it could just be one man, with just one woman, and there are some that are needed beyond two, need more than two witnesses, depending on the case. So again, that's connected to when you're investigating into a matter, what's going to be considered proof for you. Also in religious matters, diniyat, the khabar, it could be from one person. Like if the moon is sighted, if the cloud is not obscured, then just one person's information could be taken there. In muamalat, in dealings, as long as there's no evidence of lying, you can do a dealing with like one person, right? One Muslim told you, it doesn't have to be a Muslim, it could be a non-Muslim, right? You go to a non-Muslim store and you buy a product and you trust him that that's the product. That's okay. One non-Muslim, his information, you're accepting him that you're going to purchase from him. Sometimes in Sharia, it's just one person. Sometimes the evidence could be very, very low. Like you're entering someone's home. The scholars have discussed up to here even that, let's just say you're entering someone's house and there's a child there. He's not of age, but the parents are not there. And the child opens the door and says, my father said it's okay, you can just sit down in the living room, he'll be with you soon. So are you allowed to enter that house? You can, if he's a Sabiyi Mumayyiz. Sabiyi Mumayyiz means a child who discerns things. So he's not of age yet, but he's an intelligent child. He won't be just saying stuff just like that. But if it's a child who, like a 2-year-old came and said that to you, did I say 2-year-old first? No, okay, I will give an age. Okay. So who's a Sabiyi Mumayyiz? It's a child not of age, but he's a discerning child. You take his name. But what if a toddler came to you and said, come on in? Daddy said he'll be with you soon. That's not permission. The child can't give you permission to enter someone's house and you're sitting at in his couch waiting for him. Can't enter the house. So like that, everything in Islamic law will have different evidence that you're going to need to prove it. So you all are going to do all that? Or you could just forget about it. That's the other option. Look, there's always an easy option. Just forget about it. Or just check it. Reference, check it. And Allah subhanahu is giving us this command. Okay, moving on to the next verse. وَاعْلَمُوا and know أَنَّ فِيكُمْ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ, that in you is the messenger of Allah. وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ فِيكُمْ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ, and know that in you is the messenger of Allah. لَوْ يُطِيعُكُمْ فِي كَثِيرٍ مِنَ الْأَمْرِ, if he was to obey you in much of the commands, much of the affairs, لَعَنِتُّمْ, it would become hard on you. Very important instruction. Very important instruction. Telling the Sahaba this manner with Rasulullah, teachers, our imams, and our people in leadership positions. He said, if the Prophet was to obey you in all the affairs, it would become hard on you. Meaning that is telling the Sahaba, and Prophet ﷺ used to take mashwara from everyone. He would take mashwara. But he's saying that when you're given your mashwara, don't expect that he's going to follow it. I think people don't push on it. Just give your mashwara nicely and see what happens. But give the Prophet ﷺ would take mashwara. Prophet ﷺ took mashwara from his wife, right? In some instances, he would take mashwara from his wife. That's fine. So in a head of the household, take mashwara. Sometimes women give very smart, wise mashwara. I thought that this blows your mind. You take that mashwara. You should give the mashwara, but then let the Amir, the leader, let him decide. If the Amir was to just take everybody's mashwara, you said this, he wants to enact everything that everyone has said, it's turning into a recipe of disaster. It won't be right. It'll hard on you. You won't like it. Such a person who's going to follow everything. So the Sahaba are being told, that if the Prophet says, yo, Sahaba, you're telling him all these things. And sometimes the Prophet, he goes with it, sometimes he doesn't. That's his role. He's not going to go with everything that you say. And so that's also we need to remember with when we advising people, inshallah. Even around me, I have sometimes people who give me advice. I listen to advice and send nasiha. I take mashura. And sometimes people don't think I take their mashura. I take their mashura. And I sometimes, the person giving to me thinks, Omar's not going to take my mashura. And I do. And then maybe 1 week later, I'm doing exactly what that person said. I appreciated that. Just give it sincerely. And sometimes it could be in writing. Sometimes, but the wrong way to give mashura, sometimes people give mashura like this, like they say it like in front of your face, and then now they want a reaction. Shall we do it this way? They're waiting for you to react. If you go, no, see, if you don't like me, you didn't take my mashura. So don't give it like that. Whoever you wish to give your mashura, maybe put it in writing, maybe just say it, inshallah, also with respect. I think as a person is in a position of leadership. So when you do it like that, you'll be served. People will benefit. The person in leadership should take on mashwara. So it'll become such a wholesome society, right? So the lesson here is don't become aggravated that someone's not taking your mashwara. So it mentions all this. Then after that it mentions. So up to here, from the beginning of the surah till here, it was always these instructions to Sahaba Ikram that, oh, make sure you do this, don't do that with the Prophet, do this, don't do that with the Prophet, all these instructions. And obviously, indirectly to us with other, the ears of the Prophets. Then after that, now it praises the Sahaba. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ حَبَّبَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْإِيمَانِ. But rather, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made Iman beloved to you. وَزَيَّنَهُ فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ. And He has adorned it in your hearts. وَكَرَّهَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْكُفْرِ. And He has made kufr dislike to you, wal fusuq, and sins, wal isyan, and disobedience. Ulaika humur rashidun. These are the rightly guided people. These verses that I've just recited, these are praises of Rasulullah, of the Sahaba Ikram. Because it ends by saying, Ulaika humur rashidun. These are the rightly guided. It's just called all the Sahaba Rashidun. Rashidun means rightly guided. Normally, you relate Khulafa Rashidin, the Khulafa, Abu Bakr, Omar, the rightly guided, but actually, from here, this title is for all the Sahaba. We believe all the Sahaba are Jannati, right? They're all going to go to paradise, inshallah. So it says kufr, and then it says fisq. Fisq means big sin, and isyan means small sin. So Sahaba were such people that they then stayed away from kufr, they stayed away from big sin, and they stayed away from small sin. These are ulaika humur rashidun. They were the rightly guided people. There are some people out there, right, who say bad stuff about Sahaba. Some say bad stuff about all the Sahaba. May Allah protect from that. And sometimes some of them they pick on one or two. But the main thing of Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah is that absolutely no. They're human beings. They may have made an error. Just like that verse we talked about, Walid radiallahu ta'ala, that verse came that when you get a news, we investigate. That Walid radiallahu ta'ala was a Sahabi. So some scholars have said that, look, why is he being called Fasid? He's actually a Sahabi. So one way to explain that, you say that maybe he's a Sahabi, he could make a mistake. So maybe he made a mistake. He got a news, he didn't investigate. So the verse of the Quran came to tell him to investigate. And then he did tawbah. And of course, when he passes, he's radiyallahu ta'ala anhu wa radu'an. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with him. That's the way to explain that. All these instructions to the Sahaba, and then the way it moved the pronouns and the way they are placed here, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed Iman in their hearts. Instead of saying it like, oh, you all have great Iman in your heart. Allah has placed it. The language has been changed. It went to third person from second person. One of the benefits of that is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is awliya, people who are close, He likes to keep them on the edge. Just like, for example, if you have may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with a nice son, understand? With children who are pleasing to our eyes. Say Ameen. Okay. So what happens is that now the father, when he's doing his tarbiyah, you'll notice sometimes that he'll keep him on the edge. He won't just always let him know that you're so great. He won't always say it, although maybe in his heart he feels he's great. Why is that? Just keep him on the edge. Understand? Like, no, I want perfection here. No, this wasn't accurate. He's just trying to help him get Said sometimes young people take that wrong, that my dad never always criticizes me. Right? Some young people take that wrong. But that's not why they're doing it. They're just trying to keep you on the edge. A parent will do that for the child all the way till his end, till his deathbed. He'll be still. My father was like that. Till his deathbed, he was still catching me on things. But that was wrong. He's on his he was in his illness, but he said that's wrong. Why? They're just keeping it on the edge. I mean, that was his duty to make sure everything is correct. Every parent has the most love for their child, and that's what they do. And young people don't understand. They go, oh, he appreciates me a little bit, not too much. But of course they do, but they have to keep you on the edge. Just like how a father does that with his child, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also. We notice that this language here first told the Sahaba Ikram, oh, you guys need to do it like this, you need to do it like this, is the manner here, is the manner here, is the manner here, is the manner here. Oh, but this community here, yeah, I have placed in their hearts good iman and all that. So the language, the way it's placed, is like keeping them on the edge. It could have been addressed in a more directly to them, but it's not. And then it mentioned Ulaika humur rashidun, that these are the rightly guided people. And we believe that all the Sahaba rightly guided. There are many ahadith about this. Kulluhum udul. There's one riwayah. Kulluhum udul. That all of them are just, the Sahaba. Also there's a hadith. بِأَيِّهِمْ اِقْتَدَيْتُمْ اِهْتَدَيْتُمْ. Whichever Sahaba you follow, you'll be guided. But they're all stars. They're above us. Allah Subhanahu is pleased with them. They're not, you say nothing but positive about them. وَمَنْ أَحَبَّهُمْ فَبِحُبِّي أَحَبَّهُم. Do you know that from Jummah Khutbah? وَمَنْ أَبْغَضَهُمْ فَبِبُغْضِي أَبْغَضَهُم. Right? You hear Jummah Khutbah every week? You should memorize it. Jummah Khutbah, you hear it every week, you should have it memorized. What if some of you asked me to say Jummah Khutbah? Then what? Just memorize it. Whoever loves them, فَبِحُبِّي, then because of my love, he loves them. Prophet said it like that. Oh, what goes before that? What do I say before that? Allah fi ashabi. Do you remember that part? You guys are paying attention, right? In Jummah Khutbah every week. Allah, in Arabic language, when you put the fatha on it, Allah, that means like be warned. Like be warned of Allah, in fi ashabi, in regards to my ashab. La tattakhiduhum min ba'di gharada. Don't make it like, don't take your personal anger out on them. La tattakhiduhum min ba'di gharada. Meaning that don't have a personal grudge with them. So anybody who's doing that, he's not like an academic person by that. He just has like a personal little issue that he has to resolve within himself. They are not a community that they need to be doing anything like we're trying to harm Sahaba, saying negative things. That we don't need. It's none of our business. If they are radiyallahu ta'ala. And then it says, فَمَنْ أَحَبَّهُمْ فَبِحُبِّي. Whoever loves them is because of my love. They love them, and whoever hates them is because they don't like. They have hate for me. Prophet doesn't put it like that. He said them, all of them. And whoever loves them, the reason you're loving the Sahaba is because of me. And whoever will be angry with them is because you're angry with me. You can't take it out and say anything negative about me, so you'll just stay on them. وَخَيْرُ أُمَّتِي قَرْنِي. The best of my ummah is my people. ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَهُمْ ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَهُم. Sahaba is a golden era. The Sahaba and then Tabi'een, Ridwanullah Majma'in. Right? So these are Sahaba Ikram, and they're all Rashidun. Then when we say Khulafa al-Rashidun, they have more special endorsement. All of them are endorsed, right? They're rightly guided. But then the four Khulafa are the Khulafa al-Rashidun, the four of them. And then some Sahaba have more virtues. So it's like a Venn diagram. So some Sahaba have super statements for them. But they all have this statement here, Rashidun. Then the next verse, فَضْلًا مِنَ اللَّهِ وَنِعْمَةً. As a grace from Allah and as a blessing. Wallahu alimun hakim, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all knowledgeable, all wise. Then the next verse is وَإِن طَائِفَتَانِ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ اقْتَتَلُوا. I'll translate both of the last. These are the last two verses for today, okay? وَإِن طَائِفَتَانِ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ اقْتَتَلُوا. When two groups from the believers, they start fighting. If you ever have two people around, it could be a group, it could be a person. It doesn't have to be a group, it could be a person. Any Muslims are going at it with each other, right? It doesn't have to be literally fighting. It could also be just, about to fight. فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَهُمَا. So then the commandment is do sulah between. It's every Muslim's duty that you have to do what? Find a way to do sulah, reconcile between them, be part of that process. It's wajib on you depending on how effective you are. Just like when we say Amar bil Ma'ruf and Nahi al Munkar, when is it wajib on you? depending on how much you think that by you saying, what difference is that going to make? So you have to assess your own situation. So sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's mustahab. So same thing here with sulah. What your statement is going to make what difference there. And then فَإِن بَغَتْ إِحْدَاهُمَا الْأُخْرَى, and if one of them is one Muslim group or person is crossing the limits on the other group, then فَقَاتِلُوا الَّتِي تَبْغِي حَتَّى تَفِيءَ إِلَى أَمْرِ اللَّهِ, then you, who's a reconciler, you fight with the one who's being aggressive. As a Muslim, you go against that Muslim group who's crossing limits. But what do you mean go against them? Meaning go against them, not go against them to fight them. Go against them in the sense that you need to stop oppressing. Meaning you need to slow down a bit, right? In your. It's about, if you read these verses about reconciliation, the whole recipe of any reconciliation is right here. So you attempt to stop this group, and you go against them until they come to their limits. Stop crossing the limits. Go back into your limits. فَإِن فَأَتْ فَأَصْلِحُوا. Now, if they reach the limits, فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَهُمَا. Now do sulah between them, بِالْعَدْلِ. Because what happens is that once one group was transgressing, right, being oppressive, and you're like, you guys are transgressing, so we're all against you. You need to lower down. You need to bring it down a notch. And then finally, when they brought it down a notch, now what happens? Sometimes happens that now you take the side of the other party. You go, oh yeah, they were the oppressive party. Now, when you do a decision between them, you might end up taking their side because you are the oppressors. It's saying no. Still, فَأَصْلِحُوا, do reconciliation with justice. They went down a notch, but you have to do it with justice. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُقْسِطِينَ. Allah loves those who are just. Then the next verse, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ. Verily, believers are brothers. We have a spiritual bond. We're connected in the deen. We're spiritual brothers and sisters. We have to feel that way. We have to be that way. That's why a lot of our activities in Islam are all unity-based. Jama'ah. You get 27 times more reward just to pray in Jama'ah. A lot of activities have to do it together. And the purpose was to create a sense of unity. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it so. And then فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَ أَخْوَيْكُمْ. Do sulah between your brethren. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. And have taqwa of Allah so that He will have rahmah upon you. So this is all about sulah. I'm just going to give you some more notes and then we'll close on reconciliation. So as Muslims, you have to stay as brothers. And then if there's ever a quarrel between two parties, you have to, it's wajib on you that you get involved and do it depending on how much impact you're going to have on the situation. It's wajib. According to the possibility of sulah. Now, what is our case? How can you fuel the fire? Can you make it worse? Could you be an instigator? Absolutely not. Instigator is the jobs of the munafiqeen, hypocrite. So never be part of instigating. Sulah. There's very few people who do sulah, who are good at it, who are able to. In my time with certain pious people, and when I've seen sulah from them, sulah is also something. Many teachings of Islam, they're very theoretical. You really learn them when you see a practical of it. All the teachings of Islam, once you've seen somebody who's done some justice, now you understand what justice means. Because you see, Muslim human beings are like that. We're a creature who loves an example. We don't see a practical example, we can't relate. That's why we've been given anbiya. We could have just been given a book just sent down, falls right under next to your pillow. But rather you've been given a prophet, a human being. So, best things learn any Islamic concepts, especially the spiritual one and any of the teachings of Islam, the theoretical ones. Once you've seen somebody practice it, now from that point on, you know how to practice. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us that rizq, that we are able to see some of these and then we can apply it. Sometimes we find in Muslim communities, there's people fighting. And then now people just start taking sides. And they're not caring about the whole reconciliation process. They just start taking sides. They start telling one party, oh, they said that to you, that's so rude. Make sure you don't back down, huh? Make sure you tell them back, understand? Just can't believe they did that. Because you're just hearing one side. And that's another thing. When you're hearing a case, you don't hear one side. You're supposed to be hearing. That's already injustice. Why did you hear one side? And you already made up your mind. Of course you hear the one side. Every side has another side. Every side has another side. So why did you hear the case like that? Now you become biased. So you should have heard it together. It's very particular. Even in an Islamic court, the judge has to not favor any side. He has to make sure he hears them very equally. So fueling the fire, this is the work of the munafiq. See if you can always be part of the sulh process. Between spouses, between workers. And the Prophet said, whoever doesn't do that, doesn't do sulh, laysa minna. He's not from us. If you're the person who fuels the fire, so then you laysa minna, you're not from us, from the Muslim community. Also between the husband and wife, the quarrels, it mentions in the Quran, فَابْتَغُوا حَكَمًا مِنْ أَهْلِهِ وَحَكَمًا مِنْ أَهْلِهِ. Between the husband and wife, she should make a judge from her side, and the man should make a judge from his side. إِن يُرِيدَ إِصْلَاحًا. If they both want sulh, يُوَفِّقِ اللَّهُ بَيْنَهُمَا. Allah will give tawfiq between them. So there's like a promise in there. Any couple who's having issues, that if they came for counseling, Allah will give tawfiq. Allah will make it work. So in sulh is always give and take. Now, what is counseling? Basically, when you're doing reconciliation, is give and take. If every party always feels that we want to have everything and the other party is not going to have anything, that's not going to work. It has to be give and take. So in the sulh process, all you're doing is you're telling give and take. Why don't you give more? Why don't you take this? And that's what you're doing between husband and wife as well. You're just doing give and take. And sometimes between the spouses, someone is not following the rules. They're not fulfilling the rights of the other. There's some injustice happening. And once that's just pointed out, that's it. The people, 99% of the cases, it can be rectified. It can be rectified unless it's gone too far. Sometimes people don't do sulh. They don't do reconciliation. They don't do reconciliation sometime in relationships. And then they spend years and years and years and years and no reconciliation. No fixing things. And then until it's too far. Now there's no U-turn. They've already harmed each other. And they are at the brink with one another, and they've fought so many times. And after 10 years, and now they come to the Imam Sahib after all that, and say, now resolve it. Now it's not resolvable. You've gone way too far. Huh? Sulh is the best. Quran says sulh is the best. Well, and then very nicely in that verse, every nafs is greedy. In every party, between two parties that you're counseling, doesn't each party want more? Doesn't every human being want more? Right? Doesn't every human being want more? So it says, sulh is the best, although your greed is so close to you, you want more. But then, but you'll say, human beings love justice. Human beings love sulh. If you're ever part of a counseling thing, you'll realize they want it. At the bottom, there might be two parties who are fighting, but at the end of the day, they love sulh. They're just not saying it. So the job of the one who's the hakam, his role is that he's just supposed to come give them that middle ground, then they can just do sulh. They're just waiting for someone to help them out. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make me and you part of that process. And never be the opposite of this. Everybody knows the opposite. Fueling the fire. Never be part of fueling any fire. There's one statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It comes in the hadith. Unsur akhaka, help your brother, whether he's the oppressor or the oppressed. I remember a long time ago, I was reading a book against Islam written by Orientalists. And I think they had that comment in there that, look, Islam says, help your brother, whether he's the oppressor or the oppressed. But I think they fail to understand what we mean by that in Islam. We don't mean the Jahili way. Jahils used to say that, oppress your brother. I thought what we mean by that in Islam, of course, we understand how you help the oppressed. But how do you help the oppressor? By helping him not to oppress. That's what we mean by in Islam. So yes, as a Muslim, you help your brother, whether he's so now we can say it. Yes, that is the teaching of Islam. Help your brother, whether he's the oppressor or the oppressed. If he's the oppressed, we all know how to help him. If he's the oppressor, you ask him to slow down on his oppressing, because it's not good for him or anyone else. Yeah. And these verses, they bring home the point that we should feel that every Muslim is our brother. We should feel that every Muslim is our brother. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us that spirit. Give us as a Muslim community. And finally, this one hadith, and I'm going to close. The hadith is that on Yawm al-Qiyamah, there'll be mimbars, big stages set up of special of nur, and people who did adl, just people, who did justice, always make sure they're just in everything, in their spending and how their justice was their thing. They always wanted justice. They agreed to justice. You're going to have a status on Yawm al-Qiyamah if you're a person of just. You'll be honored. Just like the mu'addinun are also going to be honored. People called nice at that. Also the people who are just. So these are the verses, these are some etiquettes mentioned here. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to amal. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi subhanallah al-azim.